Anyway, good morning.
I pray you are doing very well.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Thanks.
How are you?
Yeah, thank you for joining us this morning. Doc, this morning we are looking at creatives, their mental health, and we are looking at depression to be precise. For a while, we get to hear people say, oh, who needs kind of depression? Chill. And I say, like, when your expectations are too high and they are not met, that's when you are depressed. You care to tell us, I mean, from your perspective, medical field and all that, depression, what at all is depression?
Okay, anyway, so good morning to your guests in the studio and then to your listeners. Now, anyway, the thing is that in Ghana, we make a certain, I think it's a mistake in expression. Sometimes people have, let's say, a bad day or a bad moment, and then they say, oh, I'm depressed. That is not depression. That's just about that. That is you having probably a bad day or a moment. But when we talk about clinical depression, okay, or what we call major depressive disorder, that one is a persistent feeling. Okay, it's persistent. It goes on for a long time of lack of interest or sadness. Okay, and this often leads to you losing interest in the things that you were hitherto interested in doing. Okay, so if let's say you were creative, you were somebody who would always go to the studio and go and record some verses or go and make a beat. But when it comes to depression, you lose interest in all of those things. All of those things all of a sudden. And it doesn't happen over the course of, let's say, a day or two. This is a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. So depression is very common. It's extremely common in the world, and especially for these parts of the world where most people feel that going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist is a sign of weakness. We even have it more, and it's very silent in a lot of people.
So it has to do with consistent or persistent, like you get to lose interest in everything that really excited you. Maybe you, like you said, maybe you are the type who love to sleep in the studio. You call you a studio rat. All of a sudden, you don't even find any interest in going to the studio. You don't even want to record again. Maybe you love to go to the club. All of a sudden, you don't even want to do that. You don't even want to see the same people that you were seeing again. You withdraw from people. Like, that is when you mean you are really getting into that state of depression.
Exactly. You lose interest in the things that you used to be excited about. Okay, and usually it affects even your physical and emotional state. There are people who who get off on or who are excited by the prospects of creating new things. So sometimes what triggers their depressive phases is when they are struggling to create. Okay. So let's say the guy has come out with a number one or a top 10 banger, in January, and he wants to follow it up with another one, for the Easter. And he's trying so hard to put things together. Everything that he puts together doesn't result in a sound that he's happy about, or doesn't result in a sound that he thinks that people will be happy about. So he keeps creating, he's not happy about it. It persists, one thing leads the other, and then he feels like, maybe I'm not that good as people say I am about it. Then they get into that phase of, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe, I should stop. So self-doubt creeps in. Okay, and it begins to affect everything, their psyche, it affects the people around them. Even for, let's say, regular folk who are not creative. When these things happen, it affects everything, your mood, your sleep, your appetite, even sometimes how you look. So depression, you see, the creatives, they are out there all the time. They are going for a music award show, they are going for this event, and we see them, they're in our faces, and we expect them to be a certain way all the time. So there's also a lot of societal pressure on them to be a certain way. So when they fall into these phases of depression, they really struggle to keep up. So most of them will just melt away from the limelight, and you may not see them for a long time. And sometimes, Ghana for Rebecca say, or China, and say, sometimes that person is going through a very, very difficult moment. And I don't know how the teams around a lot of these creatives are composed of, but I doubt there's a clinical psychologist or a doctor on any team of any creative that I'm aware of.
Dr. Gyimah, this thing you're talking about today, managers now, because I is happy. A clinical psychologist and now wait to be with them. But I know there are artists.
But anyway, I'm raising that point because I think that is something that all the creatives must look into. You understand? You can't not have a proper manager. You can't not have a doctor or a psychologist with you. You don't have to have the person by you 24/7, but you need to have someone that you can call when you feel that there's something wrong. Because if you say, we can't afford them, you can lose your career just because you are going through a very long phase of depression. And I'm so happy that Kojo Q has shared the story. I think he had previously shared it even in a song.
Yeah.
Yes, you see. And
funny enough, when he shared that in the song, he had not experienced it. He was just talking about it, like it came ordinarily.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Wow.
like he shared it ordinarily, and so that was just a tip of something he had heard about, and he shared in the song, until he experienced and he realized that listen, it was more than what he put into that song.
Yeah. That's true.
Now let's look at. I mean, we now understand how some of these things come about. It could be expectations not being met. It could be the fact that you're just losing interest. I mean, I've been there before. I think you lose interest in everything. Like the things that excite you, you're not excited about them anymore. You just want to be by yourself.
Yeah.
It happens and all that. I know Kim Promise, for instance, at some point when it was getting all the nominations at the TGMAs and wasn't winning, it took a toll on him. For last year's TGMAs, for instance, speaking with the team, I understand that they had to get a psychologist to prep him and psych him just in case he doesn't win. So it looks like they are seeing the need to put in those measures. Now, when we get to that point where we feel depressed, how do we deal with it? How do we come out of this?
I know when you get to that point, it's easier said than done. Most people would recoil and not talk to anybody. They want to be by themselves. So usually it is somebody around you who would notice that you are not of yourself. Okay, you are behaving, more differently than you ordinarily would. The first thing to do is to talk to someone. Just have an open, frank conversation with someone. Have to be just like from the start. Okay, just talk to somebody about how you're feeling before we even take steps to go to the psychologist. Because going to the psychologist is not as easy as a lot of people think. Because not only in these parts, we really stigmatize that care of going to see somebody to talk about. Okay, so talk to someone that you know. Talk to someone that you know you can express yourself freely with. Okay, and that person first and foremost is not also going to judge you. Okay, or it's not going to also rubbish what you are going through. Say, baby. You understand? Pick your friends and the people around you who you know have the presence of mind to say, okay, talk, I'll listen. All right, because in talking about your problem, in talking about how you feel, it's very cathartic. It takes away a lot of the emotional stress that you have put on yourself alone. So it's not for nothing that they say a problem shared is a problem solved or halved. So the first thing you have to do is talk to someone that you trust. That's the first thing I will ask you to do.
So the most important thing is to open up to somebody that you trust, so that you find solutions. If you are not able to come out of that, then you may want to now move into seeing a clinical.
It's not that talking to a person that you trust is going to bring you out of it, but talking to the person you trust, so what it's going to do is that. Okay. What it's going to do is that then you even have someone that you can even attend your clinical session with, because that person also knows a little bit about what you are going through, and that person supports you when you go. When it comes to mental health and the challenges that people go through when it comes to mental health, it's always important to have somebody close to you. When you go for these sessions, you may forget certain details that you may have shared, or you may feel shy about sharing certain components of what you are going through, and to have a person of support with you to help the professional drill down to what exactly is causing it. And I think I have to let your listeners understand that when it comes to psychological care, it's not like going once and coming and that's the end of the matter. You have sessions where the psychologists will take their time to break down all your problems, sometimes over about 3 months, about 6 months, taking their time to get you to fully open up and get to the root cause of the problem. So I think that we have to really prioritize mental health generally. And then for our artists who are always out there, I think we really need to take a bit more seriously for them.
We find ourselves in a space where, like you said, it could be a friend or it could be a family or it could be anybody. You tell the person, they've seen you, coil into your shell. You try to tell them something like, Masa, Ghana had a depression, sorry, that kind of thing. People don't want to even believe that, yes, there's something called depression. Maybe you've gone to the extreme. Now, it has to be that you have to go to the hospital, you have to see a psychologist. Our mindset is that akwano badam, and so once you are going to see a clinical psychologist, we have a certain mindset about that. Is that the state, or seeing a clinical psychologist doesn't mean you are going mad?
No, anyway, seeing a clinical psychologist is not even close to you being mad. It is recommended that at least twice a year we all go and see a psychologist. Sometimes there are things going on that you may think are normal. Sometimes you lose sleep over things that don't matter, or sometimes even your sleep pattern changes for no particular reason. Okay, and sometimes these are subtle signs that you need to talk to somebody who is very trained in the field. Like I mentioned earlier, we have equated mental health care and psychological or psychiatric care to people losing their minds or people being mad. It is so not true. So that aspect of mental health is a very small portion of what they do. They do a lot, and I have seen firsthand some of the wonderful things that our mental health professionals do. And I said, "Oh, no, because they come on, I say, oh, that person is the worst thing that could have happened to you."
That person is not helping you.
Find someone that you know is supportive and will take your complaints seriously. Not somebody who will rubbish it and make it look like, pick yourself up and let's go. That attitude has led a lot of people to their early graves because they are going through something. They want to tell, let's say, Mula or Mr. Bones, and they go like, Mula, me kwa hokache ni, obviously me cry. So he would prefer not to say it at all. And then the person lives with that heavy burden of, mental stress. And sometimes it can make people suicidal. And people can't complete suicide when they feel like, I don't have anybody to talk to. The whole world is closing in around me. Let me just end this thing and move on. And there are lots of people who are going through that in very subtle ways. So if you are listening and you have friends close to you and you are feeling that way, find that one person that you think that by saying this to this person, I'm not going to be compromised. Or find that one person and say, Sally, take me to the hospital. I want to go and see a psychologist to help me. It is not a sign of weakness at all. Actually, it's a sign of amazing strength to admit that you're going through something that you have a challenge with. It's the same. If you have a headache, you go and see a doctor. If your tummy is running, you go and see a doctor. So let's normalize people having mental stress and going to see a healthcare professional about it.
Now, from the very basics, would it be advisable? Like, okay, let me ask this first. Does depression have a particular age group or target audience, or depression could affect anybody?
No, it doesn't. Even children go through depression.
Hey,
yes.
No more how they say.
Anyway, it will surprise you that even children go through depression. You understand? Even children go through depression. You have children that parents have placed so much expectation on. Also differs to a topic. So if something happens and the child is even third or fourth or fifth, or let's say even 10th, the parents do not even encourage the child, oh, maybe, we didn't study hard enough together, or we didn't make enough time. So children also go through these phases of depression, but as adults, we want to brush it away. But no, children go through these phases. It's not normal. So there's no age range for it. It can happen to kids. It can happen to teenagers, young adults, and older adults. It cuts across.
So we need to be looking out for each other then. Now, in this regards, most of the time, the first person we should be looking out to is the closest person we can trust. Do you think we are doing enough as a society, maybe from the churches, because there are people who believe and trust their pastors, maybe in school, from senior house masters to academic counselors and all these people? Are these people having the requisite knowledge and experience to perhaps firsthand approach some of these people, students and all that, to actually help them in this regards? And if it's beyond them now moving to seeing the clinical psychologist, do you think there's enough being done to help solve this societal problem?
I know the Ghana Association of the Psychologists Association of Ghana has taken a lot of steps to train, especially pastors.
Okay.
Because they are one of the first places of call that people go to. So I know that they've trained quite a lot of pastors. I know they've trained a lot of school heads in senior high schools, especially, to be able to identify some of these signs and begin the initial icebreaker conversations before they bring them to hospital. And I mind you that a lot of people too feel that sometimes these signs and symptoms of depression are also spiritual. And they would rather want to pray it away. Prayer is good, but psychological therapy is equally better. So for some of the pastors, a lot of the pastors who belong to these organized and formalized churches and associations, they've been given some requisite training to begin the initial conversations and identify that this individual needs a psychologist. Yes, so there is some level of training around.
Interesting. For those who just tuned in, I'm speaking to Dr. Kwesi Bafo Gyimah. He is with the Asante Mampong Government Hospital, and we're talking about depression and how it comes about, what it is, and how we can actually find solutions to it when one is faced with it. Mr. Bones says he has a question, and so I'll allow him to ask the question before we let you go. I know there's much to be done in the facility this morning. So, Mr. Bones, quickly.
Doc, I would like to know how much does it cost for an individual who wants to seek the services of a therapist?
What I can tell you confidently is that if it is within the government hospital setting, it is no different from attending regular hospital with your insurance card. It is no different. Okay, it's psychological care is under the National Health Insurance. It's just a matter of presenting your insurance card, and that is it. For those who want maybe private sessions with psychologists for their own therapy, there I know the charges vary, but it is not expensive. That's much I can say, because I have recommended it to several people, several patients, and for most people, after 6 months, when they come back, they tell that they are much better, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's not expensive at all. It's not expensive at all. It's not like the ones that we see in Europe and in the Americas, where they make therapy look like you need to break the bank. No, it's the reverse over here, and I can tell you confidently that it's not an expensive treatment.
And okay, so it is just like going to the hospital to see a doctor for your headache and other things. Exactly. And then I think, Doc, then there is more that from your side you need to do, because people don't know that it is normal to go through this process, at least at the hospital. They think it's a special thing for some special people, especially as a recommend this
Mr. Boss, so sometimes we have become a society that is used to waiting till the thing gets to the extreme end. I can tell you that more than half of the people who are walking the streets, that we would say, oh, they are mad. It didn't start just like that. It started very small. Society and people around them ignored it. People laughed at them. Mr. Bones, a very outgoing person. Suddenly the person decides that I don't want to go anywhere. I want to always stay in my room. I always want to be in bed. I'm always sleeping. If it's the woman, you realize that she's always, either on her phone, she's eating, she's sleeping. She doesn't want to go anywhere. She's not dressing nicely. She doesn't want to look good. Some people will put on weight, some people will lose weight. Instead of people stepping in and saying, oh, you are looking different, what's happening? Are you all right? And persisting and talking about it, we ignore it until it gets to the point where the person feels like, I don't have anybody to talk to. And then next thing you know, they try self-harm, or they will try to even take some medications that they've heard will help them. Next thing you know, they are running on the streets. So we don't have to wait till it gets there. When it gets there, it's more difficult to bring the person back. So I think that we must all be our brother's keepers. And I think now in the social media age, it's even easier to spot when somebody changes, because people who are on WhatsApp, usually when they're going through these things, you realize that the nature of their statuses change. They start writing certain things that should draw a mind to the fact that they are going through something. If it's on Facebook, you realize that people are posting all sorts of sad content, and that should, or sometimes even sad content that usually they wouldn't even post. And that all those things are telltale signs. And when we see these things, you can go into the inbox of the person and say, Charlie, are you okay? Should I call you? Or call the person and say, I just read your status. Is everything okay? Are you all right? Like you need to talk to someone. We must be there for each other, because we can all go through depression at one point in time or another. And we shouldn't say it's when you don't have money that makes you depressed. I think we should not do that.
Okay, Doc. Thank you very much for this insightful conversation this morning. And I'm pretty sure when there's any other thing, we will knock on your door. We really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So there you have it. Dr. Gyimah sharing all these with us. Expectations could drive people into depression. In as much as we are looking at creative, when we decide to look at it in a general way as well, because everybody will fall into a state of depression.